Let's get to know one of Figma's most important features, components. Once you start designing, you're going to notice that you're going to design the same elements over and over again. So things like my navigation and my cards. And by the way, remember to unclip your parent frame in order to see all the content. Now, instead of redoing those elements and trying to keep up with any changes, it's much more handy to have some sort of template, which in Figma we call a component. And from that component, you can make copies. In Figma, we call that an instance, which you can use across your design. So let's set this up. I'm going to pull out this navigation here because I want to get right away into the habit of having my components separate from my design. In order to turn the navigation into a component, simply select it. In the right-hand side Properties panel, click on the component symbol. Note how this is going to result in a purple outline and a component sign attached to the name. And you can see the same change in the Layers panel. Other ways to create a component would be the shortcut Alt or Option, Command and K, or simply right-click and choose Create Component. Now we want to use an instance, so a copy of this component in our design. There are also several ways we could do that. You can create an instance simply by copy and pasting it, or which is a little faster, hold Alt pressed and then simply pull out a copy, which you can then place inside of your design. Note how the instance also has a purple outline, but it has an empty diamond shape. Other ways to create an instance is to jump to the Assets panel, so this is right next to your Layers panel, and here you'll see any component that you created in that file or later on which you connected with an external library. You can simply pull out that component and then place it onto your design. So let's get rid of our navigation from the Articles page and then replace it with our instance as well. Besides the Assets panel, you can also use the search function, jump to Assets, and then simply search via the name. Let's do the same for our card, and this time I want to use a shortcut. If you ever forget about a shortcut, simply hover over the component symbol, and then it's going to show you here. So in my case, this is Option, Command, and K. Now let's jump to the Assets panel where I can see my card was saved as a component and I can place it into my design. I also want to replace the other card, so let's get rid of it. And by the way, I can also just copy right from an existing instance. If you hold Shift pressed and Alt, then you'll copy right below in the same line. However, it also copies over the content from my component. So what I'll do is I usually have my component quite neutral. So I would get rid of this image here and let's replace it by clicking on plus with just a neutral fill. And then my headline, I'm also just gonna call headline. So I generally try to have all my components quite neutral, and I will then fill in the information, the content in my design. So let's find out how to do that.